have we reevaluated how we measure cognitive ability now? Because that for me is another area that hasn't had a lot of change for a long time, and I know that's a particular area of interest for you too as well. So yeah, share with us as to where do you think cognitive ability and how we understand it can and should be going.
And cognitive ability has always had sort of pride of place amongst the psychometric measures for a variety of reasons. I guess we, in this model, don't really put it on a pedestal in the same way. It is just another thing underneath the broad families. But it's one of those funny ones. It's a very funny one because it's historically been used because of its supposed validity, or its predictive validity, its ability to predict workplace performance very well. But obviously there are issues with it. It introduces it's a source of disparate impact in selection pipelines. It certainly degrades the candidate experience, which has some effect on some of these disparate impacts. And the predictive validity piece actually is currently under fire. So there are people discussing the extent to which it is actually predictive.
Or as predictive.
As predictive, yeah. You rightly point out it's really a question of how much rather than if it is at all. And I think we at Arctic Shores have the advantage of being able to look at this and say, right, how are we going to do this differently based on the fact that we use task-based assessments? And so, as you know, we recently, recently, it was about a year ago now, we revamped our cognitive ability solutions. And we use that as an opportunity to really sort of start exploring how we can do things differently through a task-based approach. And I think our abstract inductive reasoning task order is a good example of this. Traditional assessments like this, typically multiple choice, you select from one of multiple options, which is the correct answer.
And by the way, and one of those is meant to be a distractor, which I always find annoying because I always get caught out by the distractor.
You can do a lot of fancy things with which distractors are there and whatnot. But the problem with multiple choice in this context is that there's a large literature out there that shows things like people using different strategies to complete these tasks, right? So you can complete that task in one of two ways. You can look at the multiple choice questions the distractors and attempt to figure out which one is the right one. Or you can look at the puzzle and figure out what rules are determining the answer. That latter point is actually the one that we want to tap into more. It's the more sort of valid approach to the measurement of inductive reasoning in this context. And so for us, the solution was simple, to use what is referred to as a construction task, which allows people to actually fill in the puzzle the way in which they see fit. And it might seem like a simple change, but I think it really highlights some of the advantages of this sort of new approach, because all of a sudden everybody has to use the same strategy. So it's actually more valid than a multiple choice questionnaire. You have people, so it's not as working memory dependent, because now you're constructing the task as you see fit, rule by rule, element by element. You don't have to hold it all in your head at once. And you also get better data. So rather than what used to be a binary 0, 1, did you get it right in the time or not, it's a distribution of responses. Some people, if there are 10 possible correct responses to an item, some people will get 10, lots of people get 5. But you won't get zeros. You get a distribution of responses to each item. That's really interesting for us because it gives us richer data with which we can potentially extract more insights about people. And it has lots of interesting future implications, because there's also a lot of research out there that shows that different rules and the extent to which, the preference that people might show towards particular rules might be an individual difference that is worth exploring.
Okay. Right.
And so I think this just illustrates that by taking the task-based approach, you can start to do things that are difficult to do if you sort of stay in a traditional world.
Yes. No, I really like that. And the bit that I remember when you and the team were first sort of presenting this as a way forward that I really liked was that it's effectively like we've done in education for some time, which is looking at people's workings out and giving them credit for the way that they come to an answer and as you say, construct or build that answer rather than just that binary, did they get it right or wrong within that time frame? And if they just ran out of time by a fraction and then they get 0, you've just missed out a load of data about that person that they were pretty close to it, and they're not being given credit for it. So I know for me it was one of the highlights is being able to get a measurement of intelligence that was task based and move away completely from the old format.